this past 2023-2024 NFL season where the Browns got first rounded, in which I'd say mostly because their QB got injured. They've built a pretty stacked team, I'd say, during this past offseason. And I'll take a look at this offense. First, at running back, you have Nick Chubb, obviously an amazing running back to have. I'd argue top 10 running back in the league. Next up, we have to get to this amazing wide receiver core for the Browns. First, to wide receiver 1, they have Amari Cooper. And I'd say Amari Cooper is definitely a top 10 wide receiver, and I'd argue he could be top 5 in some cases. And wide receiver 2, you have Jerry Jeudy. They traded for him. Obviously, it's traded with the Denver Broncos, and I do think Jerry Jeudy will be an amazing addition to this already great wide receiver core. Next up, at wide receiver 3, you have Elijah Moore, and obviously that wide receiver core already solidifies them as a pretty, good top-tier team. And for tight end, they have David Njoku. You could say whatever you want about him, but he is also good too. And to touch up on the quarterback, obviously Deshaun Watson was injured this past season. But, Deshaun Watson, I'd say he's taken a pretty bad fall off since, the Houston Texans. But with this amazing wide receiver core, amazing backfield and run game in Nick Chubb, and, a pretty decent tight end in David Njoku, he could really return to, his former glory. And also they have Jameis Winston, famous Jameis. You can never go wrong with Jameis Winston. Even if he is somewhat bad some of the times, he is a decent quarterback, I would say, and I would love to see some Jameis Winston in Cleveland. And I also want to touch up on some pretty huge players in Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, and Denzel Ward. I do think this will be an up year for Cleveland, as most of their key players were injured, such as Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, and Deshaun Watson. And so, heading into this 2024-2025 season, obviously they made the wild card last year, but I'd go as far to say as they could make the wild card once again. I do think, because just, all around this team is really good. I am liking what they're doing with the offense, wide receiver core, and the backfield. And you may be wondering, how do they get there? Well, that's the schedule, and that's what I'm going to be looking at now. Now, in week 1, they do play the Dallas Cowboys, and I'd say that's a pretty rough game. But I do think it'll definitely be a shootout. And I do think they will lose. But on the road, week 2, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do think they take a W, just solely because I do think the Jaguars, I think their morale will be low. And I also do think they will most likely lose the week before. The next week, they play the Giants. Week 3, that's another W. So you start the season 2-1, Las Vegas Raiders, 3-1 in week 4. Week 5, they play the Washington Commanders. It can't get easier than that, 4-1. But week 6, they do play the Philadelphia Eagles. And I do think that'll be a tough one, and I do think they will lose, so they would fall down to 4-2, but still an amazing start. The Bengals, obviously, it's probably going to go 50-50. But I do think they're going to lose 4-3, 4-4. They play the Ravens after that week. So they've basically, everybody's calling them frauds right now. But week 9, they play the Chargers and they win 5-4. And then they take the bye. Week 11, they play the New Orleans Saints. I do think that will be a tough matchup. But give me the win. 6-4. Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-4. The Denver Broncos, 8-4. And they lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so then they fall to 8-5. And, you're at week 15 now, where you play the Kansas City Chiefs, and this could potentially be for a playoff spot. Obviously, you'll probably most likely only need to win 2 more games, but it'll be definitely a rough stretch. So week 15, they play the Kansas City Chiefs, not trying to glaze. Patrick Mahomes, offense, defense, they lose that one. 8-6, the Bengals, 8-7, but in week 17, I do think they will win against the Miami Dolphins, going 9-7. And so week 18, they play the Baltimore Ravens. And at this point in the season, I do think the Baltimore Ravens will be resting starters. They'll either be at the 2 seed or the 1 seed, maybe, but also you got to think the Bengals and the Steelers, so maybe they might be starting starters, but, I give Cleveland the win, so they go 10-7, just a little bit worse than, what they had this season. I'm pretty sure they went 11-6, and you can say, I don't know ball, but I know ball. And I know that this is definitely a tough schedule. And you can't deny that because they play the Dallas Cowboys week 1, Philadelphia Eagles week 6, Bengals week 7, Ravens week 8. Then they play the Kansas City Chiefs week 15. They play the Bengals again week 17. They play Miami week 17. And they play the Ravens week 18. But obviously this is just my opinion. Please, if there's any Cleveland fans, I want to know your opinions. I just want to know everyone's opinions. And please subscribe. It sure does help a lot. I'm trying to reach 200 subscribers. We're close. Pretty sure we're 26 subscribers away. So thank you guys so much, and peace.